All right, good morning, all. I swear it's allergies. Okay, so welcome back to Coffee PD. This is part 2 of a 2-part session on using assessments in Schoology. Part 1 would have been the last time we had Coffee PD, which has been a couple of weeks due to the textbook and iReady trainings. It was also the day that Zoom had did an update the night before, and I didn't catch that. So I have these set to auto record, and that update turned off the auto record. So the last Coffee PD did not auto record, and that would have been Jamie and Stephanie's session on Nearpod, Ashanti's session on engagement in elementary students, and the first assessment PD. So what I did last week is I went back and just did a Zoom all by myself. It was much less stressful, and went back over those beginning features, and I sent that video link out, I think last Friday. And it's a much slower paced one. I'm not quite as frantic as I usually am. And I went through and showed like some of the different examples that I had created for it. So I also last week made a Schoology group for Coffee PD. And so all the videos and all what I'm calling PD pathways, but basically that Google form that allows you to get your certificate, they're all in that Schoology group, so you can go back and revisit any sessions. So when I send out these videos on Monday, I'll send a link to that group also, if there were any that you wanted to go back and look at. So what I want to do for today is I want to begin with a quick recap from session 1. I have 5 big takeaways that I want to cover, and hopefully kind of fast paced, and then jump into the features that we didn't get to last time, what we're calling the advanced features. And then we're going to end looking at a couple of extra skills, such as how to take quiz tests that you already have and to convert them to an assessment if you choose to, but then also how can you make accommodations and have 2 different versions of the same test. So some students have it with read alouds and some students don't. So let's jump in. I do have the chat window open on the side. So feel free to unmute yourself and stop if you've used any of these and have good examples for how it can be used, or if you run into any problems. You know, I am very new to assessments, and with my content being only the college English class, you know, some of this just really isn't applicable to my students, and so I've only used it to set up these examples. So in actually executing it, you guys might have better feedback than I'm able to give. So I am running the waiting room. So I'm trying to multitask today. So I'm gonna try to stay on top of everything. All right, so let's jump in. So first thing we're gonna do is let's do the quick recap of the 5 big takeaways from the opening session on basic features. So we're gonna go here to our practice assessment and over to setup. So first big takeaway is, remember from the setup page, you can revise the parameters anytime. Most notably, here at the bottom, you can decide whether to let students see what questions they got wrong or see them with the correct answers to review. And it's this quick. So I don't want my students to see the correct answers, but now everyone's taken the assessment. We want to review it. So I would just go to the assessment this quick, click, show them the right answers, bam. And now when they sign in, they can go and see what answers they got wrong and which ones are correct. So just a really quick way to review following an assessment. And then you can always just do that for a certain designated class period time if you just wanted to protect the integrity of your assessment. and then go back after that time and change it to them not being able to see it, just because maybe you don't want them screenshotting it or just having it out there. The other important thing in the setup is please don't overlook these student test taking tools. We had writing SOLs at the high school this past week. We had 25 kids coming in and taking the writing SOL. So SOLs are coming back. And these are SOL friendly options. They're also just good test taking strategy. So you have the ability to allow students to flag questions for review, to slash their trash or eliminate wrong answers, to highlight important information in a passage, or to have a little electronic notepad that they can use throughout taking the assessment. All right, the other thing, just a second. All right, so that's the first takeaway. Don't forget these different setting features, and after you use them for a couple times, you'll know which ones you prefer. Second takeaway, and this is one just from talking with teachers this week as they were setting up questions and something they ran into. So remember, you have the option with nearly all of these question types to add an image. And they make it very convenient to add an image because we can click and add it from our computer, or we can just put a URL and it'll pull that image in off the internet. But this is what we've run into. A couple of things are happening. So first of all, if your student is in a place that has any potential blocking to websites, so if they're back in the classroom, this actually creates like a stem to connect the students to where that image is online. So if there was some part of that stem that was blocked by the student filter, they wouldn't see the image. The other issue that we're running into is if you add a picture using this URL feature, which is real handy and quick, it also creates like a layering. So it bogs down the server a little, especially if like they're on the MiFi, in that with each question on the assessment, as the students move through it, they're downloading the assessment question, and then they're also downloading that path to the image. So what we found this week is that some of our students with slower Wi-Fi, they were getting either broken image symbols or just not seeing anything at all. So you can avoid that by simply going in and uploading the image instead of using that URL pathway. So just something to keep in mind, because you might run into that problem using that shortcut, which is helpful to us, but could end up being a pain in the end. So that's your second takeaway. Third takeaway relates to, just remember, this is a real easy one. At any point on this question page, you can go in and you can change the point values. But remember, if you don't change it, everything is 1 point. So this is a true or false question, only has one answer, but this matching has 4 answers. And unless I changed it, it would have only been 1 point also. So at any point, you can go in on that cover page and change the points of your different questions. If you don't, Schoology will do the math for you, but it will weigh it all equally. And then also remember, in the setup, there's the option that you can choose that students are able to see the individual points that they can get for each question. Here it is. So you may want to consider that also if you did not change the point value. All right, next, with the type of questions that we already reviewed, just quick bullets with each. So with multiple choice, you have an option to choose exact match or partial match. You're going to choose partial match if more than one answer is correct. But remember, you also have the option for an alternative answer. So this is an extreme example. So if you look, the correct answer requires 3 answers. So I said, in order for them to get 100% of the credit, they had to choose all 3 answers. But then I set up the alternates. If they chose 2, they get 50%. If they chose 2, they get 50%. So that's the difference between partial and alternate. So with partial credit, it's looking at their 3 answers. If they get 2 or 3, they would get 66%. If they get 1 or 3, they would get 33%. But you can set up alternate answers also and determine what percentage you want those. With true or false questions, do remember that it is an objective question. It will auto grade. But if you choose to take advantage of this right here, check, require, if false, you're going to underline the section you want them to correct, and it then becomes a subjective question you're going to have to answer. With matching, this is one that when I've had to work with teachers that are having problems with their assessment, it's been the one that has been most overlooked. So remember, with matching, if you want them to get any credit for any correct answers, you have to click that partial match. Otherwise, you could have an entire matching activity with like 10 questions, and if they got just 1 wrong, they would have 0 credit. Whereas if they had 10 questions and got just 1 wrong, it would give them a 90. All right. Also remember, with anything, it doesn't give you the option to shuffle answers, that you're going to have to click and drag from your original screen to change that order up, or it will be in the order of the key. All right, last takeaway, and then we'll hit questions in the text box before we start with the new assessment tools. Remember that assessment's a tool for completing a comprehensive assignment, that you can use a variety of different test question formats, but you can also use it to build a single activity, such as a digital worksheet. And we looked at these last week. And again, all this information that I am racing through now is all on that video I sent last Friday. So we're going to move a little slower when we get to the new features today. So here's an example of how to move from a test question to an entire activity. If we look at it from the teacher view, it's just 1 question. If we look at it from the student point of view, it is a matching activity that is a full activity in itself. It creates a digital interactive worksheet. Another example of that with ordering. Again, it looks like a single question, but from the student point of view, we've inserted a video they have to watch, and then they have to come and they have to click and drag the different steps in order. So again, it's a complete activity in itself they would do. All right, so let me come over to chat box and look at questions, and then we're going to pop ahead and look at the advanced features. Is there a way to keep them in the testing site to avoid cheating? No, I don't believe so. If anyone has found differently, please feel free to pipe in. But I know we would need to have a separate lockdown browser feature in order to do it. And we do not. The way that PowerTest usually makes that happen doesn't apply to Schoology. But the honest truth is, even with programs like that, students can still double screen and work around it. So I think what you're stuck with is we need to look at ways to more authentically assess, excuse me. So they can't simply just go Google the answer, because we're not going to be able to limit the ability to do that remotely. Once they're in the classroom, we'll have Apple Classroom back and be able to watch their screens. Do students have to use the app for this? All right, that one, I'm not sure. So I would feel no, because the elementary teachers are using it like crazy. So teachers, you tell me, are your students able to go in through the web browser and take assessments with no problem?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, great. And then when you load the PDF, whoops, using the highlight, you have to watch a download. There is no way to avoid that. We're going to talk about it when we get to that feature. The best tip I've seen is to grade it by question. So you just let all the answers load and kind of just walk away and come back, and then I'll get you through it a little bit quicker. But if you use highlight image, the downfall is on the grading side of it. That does take a while. And we'll talk about that when we get to that feature. Shuffle options, referring to multiple choice, that if you click shuffle options, the A, B, C, D choices will be different for every student. But I think it only shows up in multiple choice. When you do ordering and matching and the other ones, you actually have to click and drag them in a different order yourself. And then that order is the same for all the students. Got it. One of the no cheat setup is using a program called ProctorU. You watch them and it tracks movements. Are we able to do that on ours? Like, do you have to download anything, Jen? Okay, so Apple Classroom, we used it at the high school last year. It is wonderful. As a teacher, you have on your iPad, I can't turn my camera back on. I guess I really don't need it. Of course, now I can. On your iPad, you're able to view the screen of every single student in your class. And you have control over their iPad screen. This is why they all have, one of the reasons they all have school Apple IDs, because they have to be logged in through that school Apple ID. Whereas at the high school, a lot of them will log out and then to log in with their personal IDs, because they want to try and do things that they can't do through their school Apple ID, like watch Netflix. But you'll know it because you won't see them in Apple Classroom. So what it is like on your iPad, you'll see like 20 little screens, and it's their screen. So you can see what they're doing and you can control it. So you can say, send everyone in the class to, and you can click on an app or send them to a specific website, and they all go there. And then you can lock the browser so they can't leave it. So that's why I was telling Alicia, it'll work well when they're back in the classroom, because I would send my students to Schoology. I would say, send all iPads to Schoology and lock it. They can't leave Schoology. So it's, and I'm able to see all the screens. So it's a great tool. It doesn't work remotely because like you have to be physically close enough to them that you can read, their iPad, your iPad can read their iPad. And then afterwards, there's also analytic features that you can look at how long a student was on an individual website or individual app, and what work they did. And so if you have students who are using that iPad to do things other than what they should be doing, you can visually see them, and you now have a report to kind of call mom and dad about, or, to demonstrate why they aren't doing well in your class. All right. You will have a coffee PD, most definitely. I don't know if that one will be me or if I'll bring Rafi and James back in. They are eager to come back and do another coffee PD in November. But you definitely, I think, because I thought Bill said something, I don't know, Bill, are you here? About the middle school, they're actually starting now to get them ready for Apple Classroom. So I'm assuming it's going to be available to us. You'll definitely have training on it. It's a great tool. All right, so I'm going to come back over and we're going to go ahead and switch over to what today's features are, which we're calling the advanced features, but they are not in any way any more difficult to use. It's just, to me, options we haven't had before with quiz test. So we have done multiple choice, true and false, matching, ordering, and the 3 different types of fill in the blank. Again, if you missed that first training, or if you have not actively been using Schoology assessments, go back and watch that video. And there's lots of little tricks and tips in there about how to most effectively use those different features. Where we're going to pick up today is right here under short answer and essay. So this is where we're going to ask questions that require students to provide a written response. So let's take a look at what this format looks like. So remember all the text-rich options that you have up here in composing a question. You now have the ability to give your students most of these also. So down here, it's like almost like piano keys. This is where you're determining what features will be available to your students. By default, they are able to use bold, italics, underline, bullets, and numbering. But you know, I'm going to take out bullets and numbering because I want my students to write well-developed paragraphs. So whatever is grade is what you've allowed them to do. They can add pictures. If it's a math problem, you can make the math character keyboard open to them. So whatever is grade is what options are going to show up to them as able to use in their response. You can set a word limit, which I find funny. I would prefer to like set a minimum that they have to achieve before they submit, but that's reality, right? But you can set, you know, what is the limit of words they can submit? And then do you make it visible to your students? Do you let them know when they hit the limit? Do you not make it visible? And then if they go over the word limit, are you going to allow them to submit it? Placeholder refers to on the question, what will they see? And so you can leave this blank. I mean, most of your students will know to click here to type their answer, but whatever you put there, it'll disappear once they start typing. So on our practice assessment, I did not put a quiz question like this, but I did create one that I actually used in class. So looking again, okay, I'm gonna come back to you, April. I don't know. Okay, so typically at the high school, especially with the college students, I use primarily Google Docs. But I know for a lot of folks, that's not an option. So you can think about this as a way to create a virtual worksheet, especially if you want students to type the answers rather than them trying to write with their stylus and you trying to read what they write. And you know, and they're writing about 3 inches tall and they don't have enough space to do that. So all I simply did for this is I did add text with the directions and then 4 short answer questions. So from the student point of view, it's simply, here's my directions, and then they just type their questions. So what I like about this is that when it comes time to grade it, you can choose to grade by student or by question. Now, most of my students haven't figured this out, but I don't necessarily read everything that they write. So on this assessment of 4 questions, I might only go and look at question number 1 and question number 4 to actually grade those questions. And then it allows you to check only those targeted responses, but also, you know, if you're going to read all the responses to question 1 across your whole class, you're going to be able to catch students who may have worked a little too closely together. And then here's the other idea I had with this. This could be simply where you have students type an essay. So, you know, if you're not able to use Google Docs because you have younger students or you have students that just can't figure it out, then you could have a prompt and their answer is actually an essay. So this is a way for them to submit that. And again, you can have them add images here, But if they're going to add more than one image, I would question if we want to stay in short answer or if we want to move with file upload. So, and we're going to come back to questions on these different features after a few of them. So feel free to type them or your experiences with them in chat. All right, so with file upload, this allows the student to submit external files in response to a post prompt. They can submit PDFs, JPEGs, PNGs, GIFs, PowerPoints. It is logical to me if you're going to do this as a question or a part of a larger assessment. If this is the whole assignment in itself, then I would say just to create it as an assignment rather than an assessment. But it also allows you to upload multiple images. So see, you can dictate how many files they can upload. So, you know, they could do artwork from various eras, create their own portfolio here. The test question, I did throw a quiz question on so we could see what this looked like from the student point of view. I saw this idea on an online assessment, there it is, that, you know, have your students create a meme that indicates something they learned in that unit, right? So create a viral social trend by expressing your love for Java, visit meme generator, and there's a link. So when they click on that, it'll take them to a place to create a meme. To create a meme that shows your caffeine dedication, upload your meme here. An example has been provided for you. We added an image here. So again, this is the student point of view. So they would upload whatever image they have saved to their iPad right here. Okay, so what do we have going on over here? When I've used short answer, I've had issues recently that when I go to grade their answers, some of their answers have been cut off. Like it's in the middle of their sentence, so I don't see the full answer. Okay, I have not had that issue and I've not seen it on the problem board, but Emily, I see that you're saying that's happened to you also. And I know your kids are not writing as much as my kids are writing. I will follow up on that and touch base with you guys and let you know. Okay, so maybe it's something glitchy if it's only been this week. My kids are writing like mega responses and I've not had it. Jen, did you have that issue when they were doing critiques? Okay, so it sounds like it might be something glitchy. Emily and April, are you checking it in the app? Because I have heard, okay, because I have heard that it's not as friendly to teachers to grade some of these on the app. Okay, I'm gonna look into that and I'll let you know when I find out. Okay, so drag and drop is having a glitch too. Okay, well, I'm gonna assume glitches mean they're figuring out ways to improve everything. All right, I used that this past week for my Art 1 students to write 5-paragraph critiques for one of their drawings. Great. And I always think about the middle school with that because I think that you guys are in a place where I need your students writing more. But how can you effectively do that if we can't require them to use Google? And then I think assessments has lots of different features that are gonna allow you to work around it. All right, so it definitely looks like it's hit or miss whether or not we're having that issue. Is there a way to enter keywords that the Schoology will recognize when grading? There is no way to auto grade this type of questions. That one a few weeks ago was very specific. And what's funny is that I think Susan Melby was texting me about it first and I didn't understand the question, but yeah, we're gonna assume that one's never gonna happen again. All right, I'm gonna come back to different type of questions. So that's file upload. Now I did, you have the ability to have them upload audio or upload video. I would love to hear from anyone that has used this feature in assessments. I did have my kids upload videos as an assignment last week. And that was kind of hit or miss. My students who had, some of them had slower internet, so I expected it. Other ones had great internet, and it took forever for them to upload a 3-minute video. So I'm curious how that works in assessments, but you do have the ability here to give your students a prompt or multiple prompts in which they respond, not in writing, but with recorded audio or video themselves. So the example here is one that I saw in someone else's training video that I thought was a great example. I mean, I'm going to assume that we are going to have our kids in classroom next semester, but let's say we didn't. And it was the idea of, it was the idea of having students introduce themselves so you could hear how they pronounce their name. And I thought that was really cool because, like, you know, that's a huge thing with me, that I want to make sure I'm saying names of students correctly. And I know that I can make my students self-conscious sometimes when I'm trying to make sure I'm getting it right. So I'm repeating it a few times. Whereas this to me was a very like ninja way of getting them to say their name. So I thought this was a great idea. So like first day of school, or, you know, virtual school or not, you know, have them, this is a student view. So I inserted an image. Here are 3 questions. They're going to hit right here, record, and then answer these questions just for me to kind of get to know them before I meet them. But also that idea of saying their name, right, Chelsea? I was like, I really like that. If you're a foreign language teacher, how great is this? You know, it really changes the format of how you're able to assess now, in that you can actually hear the students speaking in a different language. Or if you're, you know, a music arts teacher, you're able to dictate how long you give them to record. I did limit it to 3 minutes, as I was thinking the longer it is, the worse it's probably going to be to upload. And also, if I'm listening to 90 students, let's be realistic about how long I want them to talk. And then remember, so this is an example of audio, but we also have the ability to let them do a video of themselves. And I know we use lots of different formats for that. So if that was the entire assignment in itself, you know, I have used Flipgrid before. You can do videos other places in Schoology. But just here's another option for it. But what if that is a test question that, you know, they're going to have to put ideas together themselves and demonstrate knowledge in a way that they're looking at you and talking to you on screen. So even if they went elsewhere and looked up the information, they're still going to have to piece it together and use it. Yeah, I am trying to, you know, how can we stay in Schoology as much as possible? But if other things are working for you, then great, you know? All right, so that is audio, video, file upload. We did all that. So let's get to the cool things. So these are really what I'm thinking are the advanced features. So first, let's look at label image. This is one that I think is game changing if you've not played with it yet. So I'm actually going to set up a question and then we'll look at a couple of examples of it. So I'm going to upload an image, and I'm not going to use the URL option because I want to make sure they see the image, or otherwise this question is a bomb. Come on, work with me here. There we go. All right, so we have uploaded a plot diagram. And so I'm going to write in, my directions are label the 5 sections, you know, I have to talk out loud when I type slow, of the plot diagram. All right, you can choose to label the image if you want. Okay, and so this is the perfect image here, right? It's got all these blanks within the right end, but they can't do anything with these blanks. But this is what we can do. So I have 5 blanks. I want to add 5 boxes. So number 1 is going to go here. Number 2 will go here. Number 3, I got to stay in my image, so I'll put that there. Number 4 will go here. And one more, number 5 will go here. So now I have 5 questions. I need to have 5 answers. And of course, I need to tell Schoology what those answers are. All right, and then I need to come down here and give it the correct answers. All right, so a couple of things I want to do before I save this. So we're not going to have any duplicate answers. Right now, there's 5 correct answers, and I'm going to give them partial credit for whichever ones they get correct. Under additional setup, you can decide how big those answer boxes are. You can add pointers, which we'll look at in a minute. Word wrap means whatever the answer is will fit in that box. Otherwise, you might have a half of your word disappears because it's bigger than the box. All right, and then the other thing, we've got to make sure we come up here and shuffle our responses so the students don't see the answers in the correct order. And there you go. So that is how you create a label image question. Now let's take a look at what that looks like from the student point of view. All right, and so as a student, this is what it would look like and how I would answer the question. So here is a way that you can take any activity, any picture, any worksheet you already have and turn it into a drag and drop activity. So there's a couple of more examples I'm going to show you. Okay, so here we go. So here is another example of label image, which to me is really drag and drop, in that we uploaded a map, we uploaded all these different labels, and so the student would have to come in and then identify the different countries. I was very careful to use things I could answer correctly. And then I think there's one more. Nope, that's label hotspot. All right, so that's a label image. And I do have a couple of activities as a whole using this that we can look at. All right. Okay, so again, it looks like a test with one question. The reality is it's going to be an activity, but this activity has a problem. So let's take a look at it. All right, so here is the problem with this activity, that the students need to label the different parts of the digestive system, but which of these is the small intestines and which of these is the large intestines? I think that's difficult for the students to understand from this map or from this image. So coming back down here to additional setup, we can choose to add a pointer to those boxes. So now coming back up here, I can move them in a way that more clearly demonstrates what exactly they're pointing to. Let's see, maybe that. So that's an added feature, something to think about if you're adding text boxes and you think it kind of, you can't really tell where the box is going. You can add that pointer and okay, I caught Tiffany's question and I'm wondering, because I don't think alternative answer is, oh, you can go alternative answer. Yep, so right there. So, I was going to say, so you could do an alternative answer, but it would depend on how many, like if I had 5 answers, I would do 5 alternative answers. You would just have to shuffle them in different orders. But I almost think that grading it individually may be just as fast as setting up all these alternatives, but that's how you would do it. So you would go in with the alternative answer and then put them in different order, and then another, because you can keep going for multiple alternatives, which is a little time consuming, but if it's an activity you're going to use multiple times, then again, you do it once and you're done. Okay, so that is, so from the student point of view, okay, we did look at this one from the student point of view, right? So they would just drag and drop. And remember, this was just one question. So we could make it that the next question looked at the skeletal system. The next question looked at a different body map. So that I thought was pretty cool. Anytime you want to label things. But then here is, I think, the time saver. Here's where I'm going to win over some of my elementary student or teachers, I think. Okay, so how many of you have a worksheet that does the job really good? Okay, Melissa, I'll come back and look at that and show you. Okay, check this out. So let's say you have that worksheet that, look, this does the job for you. This has everything that you need. Why can't I just use it? Well, you could. And we could upload it and make it a PDF that the kids have to upload, write on, download, and you go in and look at everyone and check it, right? Or we can upload that worksheet. Remember, we're going to take a picture of it with our iPad, save it as a JPEG, upload it, add those text boxes. It's now a click and drag activity that answers itself. Did we catch that? Because I think this one is pretty major. So let's look at this from a teacher point of view, and then we'll look there too, Melissa, at how to upload photos. So this is what the label images question looks like. And right here, it'll say upload photos. So this is the photo that I've uploaded. And then I added a response box and dragged it to each blank. And then typed in the correct answers and dragged them over. But look what I forgot to do. So the correct answers are 57, 41, 38. I didn't shuffle my answers here. So I want to make sure I do that anytime I use a non-multiple choice question, or else students will figure it out pretty quick. So again, all this is you upload the picture, add the boxes, and it's now self-grading. So if you think about some of the activities that you're currently doing with PDFs that the kids are having, ooh, really? You know what I would, Cynthia, how are you taking a picture of it? Because that's what we're going to have to change. We're going to have to change that file size. Because this one, I actually did it with my phone. I use my phone a lot when I just take pictures of it. I'm not real good about using my iPad.
Henry, you can have them scan it in the copier and then send it to themselves as a PDF.
Okay. Now I think we have to upload as a JPEG, but we can switch it to a JPEG pretty quick too. Okay, so we've got to figure out how to get the files smaller. So I will look for, let me make a note of that. I'll look for some tips on that and include it when I send out this video and the PD links. So make files smaller.
I'm pretty sure I've done it with a PDF.
Okay, great. And like I said, I'm new to this stuff. So please, by all means, tell me when I'm missing ways to make life easier on you. Okay, I've had to crop some images saved from the internet to make them under that 512 size. Okay, all right. So we got to figure out how to make the image small enough to do it. But there's definite benefit to here, especially again, if you have some activities that you're giving to them as PDFs, which you're having then to go back and hand grade each one. Can you change it to this format by throwing some response boxes on here and then letting it auto grade it for you? So Melissa, right there where it says upload image, that's how I got this here. Scan tool makes PDFs huge. Ah, okay, there you go. Okay, good. All right, so that is label image. I think that's one that if you're not taking advantage of, it can definitely be a little life-changing to you. Because you can take some of the worksheets that you may have been using in class and make them self-grading, and you can avoid some of the upload, download, PDF, and individual grading if it works for the type of assignment this is. Okay, well, you know what I can do? Because I have that Coffee PD group now, I'm actually reading from, I make like very detailed typed notes. So I can upload like the notes for my sessions in the folders with the video and the PD certificates too. Because yeah, I have like 12 pages of notes I'm using for today. I remember at heart, I am an English teacher. Okay, well, let's definitely take a look at that. All right, so let's move on to the next type of question now. I'm trying to be respectful of time and I'm always running late. Okay, so let's come back to our practice assessment. And we only have a few left, but they're pretty big ones. So we looked at label image, and remember that's going to add those response boxes. Highlight hotspot is a weird one. So let's look at the examples first. Where are they going to be here? They're going to be right after the continents. Because it's a little hard to explain if it's not tangible. So let's go in and physically look at what these look like. Okay, that's one example. All right, so this is an example of a question that's called highlight hotspot. So I uploaded the image, and these are the choices that the students have. So here is that quote. Remember, quoted text. Ever wonder where coffee you had this morning came from? The major coffee growing regions in the world are tucked beneath, between the tropics of Cancer and Capricorn. From Africa, where it originated, the cultivation of coffee has expanded to the east, known as the Bean Belt. Highlight the section that represents the Bean Belt. And so we're going to set one of these questions up so you can see how to do it, but I wanted you to see physically what it looked like. And so the students are going to pick one of these as the answer to their question. So here's another example. I need to pick one that's probably the colors aren't as clashing because these highlights show up in yellow. But the idea of having a map. So Benjamin's family is spending fall break in Colorado Springs. Benjamin's mother wants to go on a family hike, but she needs to consume copious amounts of caffeine before embarking on this endeavor. Which area of the map will she visit on the first day? And then they have these 4 sections that they'll look at what's there to choose the answer. So let's look at how to set that up. And if anyone has used this, I would love to hear about it. I think I can see it in a social study, like a map, like regions type questions. It's just a little weird. All right, so highlight hotspot. we're going to come up here to the question, and we have the ability to type your questions and all these rich images. Then we're going to upload the image. And I'm telling you, it's going to be the weirdest example ever, especially coming from me, those of you who know I don't actually eat beef. But Elsa the cow fit our purposes here. Okay, so we're going to upload our photo. Tick tock, tick tock. Okay, it's there. I don't see you. We should see that. Oh, good Lord. I know I can't think of anything else to, again, I mean, I'm learning elementary purposes. See, it didn't look like that before. So I think maybe I hit the wrong thing. I don't know. All right, so come back to me, Cal. Okay, there we go. All right, so you would type in your question and then you'd upload your image. And here is where the limitations are. You have to do direct lines. So anywhere you click, it does a dot to dot. So like I was thinking, like, you know, if you did a solar system picture, like you couldn't draw a circle around the different planets, but you could square them in. And if you make mistakes, you can undo whatever you did. So, I mean, I think this is a really unique question type. I'm just not real sure. You know, I'd love to see some way that people are using it. We're going to come down here and we pick the correct answer. And that's all you would do for this type of example. All right, so that's highlight hotspot, and this is an auto grade. So again, when we get to highlight image, which has a whole lot of freedom, but is not an auto grade, it makes, you know, there's definitely the trade of what you're willing to trade time for convenience for you versus student. But highlight, yeah, I think anything with a map would work real well. I mean, I can see the whole, you know, regions of Virginia with this, but it does auto grade. So that's a definite benefit to it. And then highlighting text is a same concept, but the setup's a little bit different, and you again can auto grade. So let's go into an example and look. So that was highlight image. This is highlight text. I have found that cut and paste doesn't work real good on these, but if you split screen, you can drag it over. So in this example, we have a poem about coffee, and the question says, which lines are example of personification? So over here, we would click possible responses to answer our, to decide what the kids can pick. So you can choose, if it was in paragraph form, to highlight the whole paragraph. In this case, I've chosen to make each sentence a possible answer. You also could choose to make each word a possible answer. So I think this has a lot of applicability. So I'm going to keep that as sentence because I want the lines of the poem. And then I'm going to come down here to my key and choose the examples of personification. Not necessarily a poem I would use in class. And I'm not going to save that in case I messed it up. So let's take an example. Let's take a look at what these examples would look like. So anytime, I think this one is definitely has K-12 applicability. So anytime you would want them to choose a section of writing, you want to choose highlight text and it auto grades. So here's what that question would look like. In the poem above, which lines are examples of personification, and they can pick any line they want. And then here is another example of how that might be used. We have a reading passage and it says, the effect is highlighted in red. Highlight the sentence that explains the cause. So Kopi Luwak is the world's most exclusive and expensive coffee. And then they have every other sentence as an option of, if this is the effect, what was the cause of it? With the setup of this is a good one to show you because it has an alternative answer. So the correct answer would be the first sentence, but you know, the second sentence there reiterates it. So I'm going to give them as an alternative answer 50% credit for that. So that one is highlight text. Trying to see, I don't have, okay, good. All right, so the last one we are gonna look at, and this is the one that a lot of the buzz in the chat is about, you have a trade-off on. So highlight hotspot will auto grade for you. Highlight text will auto grade for you. And that might be like in looking at word sorts, maybe there's a way to do it with highlight text that's different, but easier to auto grade. So rather than like maybe looking at compound and proper nouns, you know, click all the nouns that are proper and then click all the nouns that are common in 2 different questions, and then same skill, but auto grade it for you. All right, highlighting image is the last one we're looking at. And this is, let's go straight to the question for this because you're gonna see why it's a great thing. But the downfall is it is a pain to grade. All right, so this is the big answer to, okay, we are almost done with the first quarter and my students, they just still can't upload or download a PDF. It's just not working for us. It's not age appropriate. I don't know how to better explain it. What can I do? Here is your answer. So if you use, it's called highlight image, which is a little misleading, but basically you upload the PDF, the JPEG, the picture, the worksheet, whatever it is, the student clicks on the color they want and they're able to write on it. Right, so the downfall is when it grades it live, meaning that you watch the students respond. Now, I did see last night in the Schoology community group where a first grade teacher was loving it for handwriting exercises. She was actually using it as a spelling test. She had did inserted audio for the word and then inserted like lines for the students to write the words. And that she was able to watch how they were forming letters. So, you know, were they using the correct form? Because she could watch them live write it. But again, you know, kind of like Dana said, you want to make sure it's an assignment that you want to allow, because you don't have to physically sit there and watch it. You can just allow it to download and walk away. But it's definitely, it takes time to download each question. So the last thing we're going to look at with these advanced features are a couple of activities that take that highlight image and use it solely. And we did peek at some of these last time. So for example, I know students writing with a stylus is not replacing them writing in the classroom. But you are able to look here, you're able to go back and look, how did that student form the A? So I'm on the student view right now. So even though it may be all over the place and not in the line, are they doing it that way? Or are they going, you know, so there's the benefit. Yeah, and so, and talking about students not writing small enough, look at this other example. This is one that some of my math teachers that I work with in Chesapeake are using this, but math teachers here, please tell me, is this enough room for your students? So this is one of the things that they are using so that their students can write out the problems here. Now, I think if this was a worksheet I handed them in class, that would be more than enough space. But for some of these, I can't fathom our kids writing in this little bit of space here. So you do want to think about that. So you could set it up rather than uploading a worksheet like this, maybe have written each out as an individual question so they have that full space to solve it. And then Faith gave me a heads up to some really great activities that the third grade team has loaded into their curriculum folder. So check this out. This is by far my favorite example of highlight image. So here's a reading passage, and then here are 6 different questions that the colors actually line up with the colors available. Is that yours, Sarah? This is kudos. This is like the best thing I have seen using this. So students are able to figure out the question, choose the right color, and go and underline it here. So yeah, this is like by far why we would want to use something like this, right? But again, just if you're using a PDF, this is another way to do it without the upload and the download. And I think the last example is also, I sneak into y'all's classes all the time and see the cool things you're doing. So you very well could have stuff show up any day that's like, oh, that's me. And then I think this is, oh yeah, this is another one. I'm pretty sure this is the same folder, right? That a different way, an alternative assessment that allows the kids to physically manipulate the information, color coding it, but just how much information is taken from this assignment in a fun way. So the colors are there, that automatically, these are the 6 colors that are available to students. They would just click the drag down caret to change the color. The default is red, but they can pick any color they wanted to. So you're able to color code it. So I like this one, almost like a bingo board look, but it tells them what each definition is. And then they're going to choose different colors for how they're going to circle or color it in. So, interesting. Okay. Ms. Matthews, I'm assuming that you don't know we're still in private chat because that's a really good question. So I'm going to throw it out there. So those of you who have used this feature, have you dealt with kids who can't see the colors, like kids with, you know, colorblind or visual impairments? I'm not sure. We would have to find a workaround for that if we were color coding. But I mean, yeah, we could always associate the color with a number and, you know, have something alternative for that student. But I definitely think this is just, you know, a rich, engaging way to do some of those questions. All right. So that walks us through nearly everything available to you in assessments. I have obviously avoided some of the math questions because I would not be a good resource in figuring out what to do with those. I'm still very open for any of our math teachers to come in and run a session one week. And then what we wanted to do to wrap this up, and then we'll take any questions or anything you guys want to share, is let's say that you have a quiz test. That's a good point. Yeah, Jen, they do always load the same order. So we could actually tell students, maybe even do like a screenshot and give them a key of which one's which. All right, so let's say that you've already done quiz test and you want to switch it over to an assessment. because you want the statistics on it. We didn't look at statistics, but there are really great statistics available to you with assessments that will let you look at what students did well on, what they did poorly on, just lots of options there. All you need to do is go back to that quiz test, save it to your resources. And then from your resources, you would just right click and say convert to assessment. It takes a while. So, and it'll come up and say it could take a few minutes. I did it last night to practice, and about 20 minutes later, it still wasn't ready. This is a very large assessment, so that might affect it. But then it's here, and then I can now go and add it to whatever course I want to as an assessment. And then lastly, remember we looked, especially in the beginning, at all the different ways you can add accommodations to assessments with read alouds specifically. So let's say for some reason that you wanted to only make certain versions of certain assessments available to certain students. So remember, we have the option to do this. So let's add that in my practice course. Yeah, there's lots of chatter that quiz test is disappearing. Schoology has said that it will not disappear for enterprise customers, which is what we are. If that becomes something different, I will broadcast loudly that that is the case, but I've asked directly because there's definitely been a lot of buzz about that, and they have said if you're an enterprise customer, it's not disappearing. Okay, so lastly, so I can let some of you guys go, is if you want to give this assessment to only certain students, real simple. Remember, anytime you see the 3 dots, we can click on it and put the names of our students there. So if we wanted to have 2 versions of the assessment available, one with read aloud, one with not, we would take the one that has read aloud features and only make it available to those students who have those accommodations. Personally, I would just make it available to everyone if that was the case. But you do have that ability to individually assign by using those 3 dots right there. Oh yeah, and that's also a way to shuffle up, right? Because that's also a way to, if you wanted to have, let's say you're only gonna ask 5 quick questions, right? But you could change those 5 quick questions. And I know Miss Matthews did this, so that in a classroom, they had a bank of questions, but they had different questions. So it was a fair assessment, but it was differentiated. And so students are giving answers for questions that weren't on their version of that assessment. So that's another way you can do that too. All right, why does a grade disappear for other students when using individually assigned? You would have to make, if you individually assign it, then it's only available to that one student. So what you need to do is make a copy of it and make the copy individually assigned. My camera is like a jerk today. I was trying to bring my video back and it's not coming, so that's okay. Okay, so Rachel, do you get what I'm saying? If you guys take an assessment and it's available to the whole class and you then individually assign it to 1 to 3 students, you've now not made it available to the whole class and it's only available to those 1 to 3 students. So you need to make a copy of that assessment so that it'll show to you there's 2 different assessments. That second one, that's the one you make individually available to those students and only they will see that. They'll still see the first one, but they will now see that second one and it doesn't affect the students who took the first one. All right, guys, any other questions about assessments? This session is recorded. I will edit all the sessions over the weekend. Mrs. Lindsay did one today on doing virtual tours with your students. I do not have the ability to record the Harcourt one, which was reading focused today. They are doing a session for the next 3 weeks. I think the plan is to walk through each content area, but I will let you know as soon as I have an update on that. And when I send out these videos on probably Monday, I'll also send you a link to join the Coffee PD group on Schoology so that you're able to go back to any of the videos or any of the PD pathways to earn your certificates. And for the Schoology boot camps, I'll also go ahead and drop my notes in each one of those. So you actually have written down notes for how to do these different features if you want to go in and play. Reach out to me if you need help. I'm still bouncing around between most of the schools. I don't make it to the middle school too often, but I certainly can pop over there if you guys have that available to you. Okay, Crystal, I'm making note of that. I think Mr. Hatch is working on figuring out who is getting what emails. That's why we're getting these weird emails from him to ignore. And we didn't talk about rubrics, but also with the short answer questions on Schoology, you can add a rubric to that too. So you could get through those a lot quicker in your grading for material or having to read. All right, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and shut this down and I will see you next Friday, if not sooner. Thanks and have a good weekend.